Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to another edition of the Volpe Bazzo Report. I'm Domenic Volpe, your co-host. With me,
back from Florida, right?
No, Florida. Busy working again.
Well,
and once again, Andy Bazzo, my co-host.
Now, this show, unlike the last show, is going to be on politics. Let's be honest. We're talking politics. And before we go, I want to remind everybody that every week you can see my column in the Yorktown News. And so look for it. And we're going to go right to the show because this is an important show because, as I mentioned at the end of last show, Domenic Volpe has decided to re-enter the arena of running for public office. And he's going to primary because you did not get the official party nod, let's be honest about this.
Yes.
And you're going to primary to be a Democrat line for the town of Cortland Council because there are 2 vacancies. Who's stepping down?
Okay, after...
Who stepped down? After all these hundreds of years they've been on.
Yeah, they've been there quite a few years. Ann Lindau Martin, who had been on the council for 20 years, she decided this year, because her term was up, she decided to step down, or not step down actually, it's just she's going to finish out her term. Right. And decide not to run for re-election. So she decided 20 years is enough. I believe she was even a Village of Croton trustee for, I believe, 2 years or 3 years prior to that.
I think you mentioned that to me a long time
so,
ago.
Ann has had a long, distinguished career in not only the Village of Croton, but the town of Cortland itself. I mean, they've been through some, tough times, the early stages in the town of Cortland. So she's stepping down in that sense. And John Sloan concurrently, after 16 years of being on the town board, also decided, 16 years, I believe I don't know if he's retired, but he's in now a new financial services sector. He has more time to spend. His kids I believe, are out of college now. I believe his lovely wife is also at the stage of where she's retiring. I know he loves visiting countries, especially Italy. He tells me all the time about how they go to Tuscany and go rent a place for a week or 2 weeks.
Well, now, there's going to be a whole section of Cortland now that doesn't know you because when you ran for the county legislature,
right,
the lower part of Cortland was not in District 1. They were in District 9.
Correct.
So now we got a whole new group of people that are going to meet Domenic. But I want to get this out of the way. Because you just talk about Sloan's kids being out of college. You have 4 kids.
4 children, yes.
2 boys, 2 girls.
Correct.
Their names?
Danielle, Nicholas, Alyssa, and Michael.
And you have one in college.
Yes.
Michael's still in high school.
Michael is still in high school.
Alyssa is a nurse.
Alyssa is right now attending Pace University on their nursing program.
Right, she wants to be a nurse.
Yeah, she's a year and a half away from finishing up in that program.
And Nick is in Rhode Island.
Nick is in Rhode Island.
You actually let him leave the state, huh?
Yeah, he's only there. Well, let's put it this way. He thinks that there's a good opportunity he can land a pretty good job. So temporarily, he just left about a month and a half ago. Things are, looking up for him there. So
and
he wants to give it a
your
shot.
wife.
Mary Ann is
and
my
how
wife.
long you been married?
Too long.
Well, you got to figure. Not Alyssa. Danielle is how old?
Danielle is 27 or 28 now.
So you've been married 22 years.
Oh, yeah, right.
No, how long you been married?
No. I mean, 84 when we were married. We had Danielle within a year. Nick was born 2 years after that. So I believe they're 26 and 28. It kind of gets lost in the
Well, yeah, you got 40. My mother stopped at 2. And then we were a handful. So I don't know how you did it with 4. They ran a business, had 2 kids.
That's right.
You run a business. You have the main plant in Peekskill, and then you have a satellite branch in Cortland Manor.
Cortland Manor, that's right.
And like it says, and you still had time to do all the stuff you do. I mean, you had Little League. And
the soccer and all that stuff.
That's what I'm tired of hearing you talk about soccer. That's not a sport, but I'm saying, but you did. I mean,
and the cheerleading and the dance.
You made all the time for all that stuff.
Right.
And, it's not easy when you run a business.
No. I mean, listen, the business takes easy. I mean, if the doors are open 8 to 5:30, you got to add a half an hour before, a half an hour after on a daily basis. Right. And then, when there's repairs, not uncommon for me to be there at nighttime.
Oh, I know that.
6:30, 7 o'clock at night until.
With me knocking on the door with coffee.
That's right. That's right. So
now your parents are still alive.
Parents are still alive. Everything's. Matter of fact, they just got back from Florida. They were there for 4 months. They're snowbirds.
Yeah.
They're enjoying.
But
the
they
life.
help you out.
They help me out when they can, but they're really, literally, they're gone.
But I've
6
seen your
months.
mother and father sewing the clothes. I
Oh,
mean,
sure.
I said they help you out with it.
When they're around, they don't want.
Well, they can't be idle.
Exactly. They're the
I've
old
noticed
guard.
that's a trait in your family, that nobody can just sit around and do nothing.
I was born and raised in the business.
But I've noticed that with your kids too. It's something you pass down.
Even with my children,
they just can't sit idly by.
If they had the Saturday off and nothing was planned, the event, whatever, you know what? I need you at the store. I don't even care if it's just answering the phone. They could be as involved as they wanted to, or as limited as they wanted
now,
to.
you
but
know,
it's
I've
important.
always said we never fight last year's war. I don't believe in that.
Right.
But you have run for office 5 times.
Yes.
Family support. How important is it?
Especially running a family business, extremely important.
But running for office.
Only because every hour that I take away for the campaign means I have to have a family member cover. And when with so limited time, it's important. So it's got to be all or none.
I'd say, but you've never run for office without you discussing this with your family.
This is always a sit down with the family from beginning to from
But
the,
you're
from
not.
the oldest
But I'm
to the
saying
youngest.
you take their input. I mean, you're not saying I'm the father. This is what I'm going to do, and
It's never forced. If there are plenty of times where there were years in between where I did not run because I did not have the support.
so I mean,
of
it's
the
been
family.
4 years since you ran
Right.
for office last, and I know that
Correct.
your family said this is not happening.
Correct. No, listen, if it were up to me, I'd be running probably all those years in between.
I know.
But I realize that there's a financial toll to the family.
And emotional.
Well, emotional is one thing. I can deal with the emotion better. Them, I understand.
Oh, come
It's,
on. Your wife
you know.
can't stand when they go after you. You
Well,
know that.
no,
She's
no.
your avenging angel.
No. Meaning, if it was me myself, without barring the family, I would be doing it again. It's a passion, and you have to go through it.
So
that's what it is.
So now it was 4 years since you last ran. How'd you convince them to see? They're supporting you on this one now. They said it was enough time.
I think this one was more. I believe the break as far as the 4 year period did give a chance to kind of regenerate the batteries.
So they're on board.
They're on board, and especially since they saw the outpouring from. Especially many of the town board members, as well as.
Well, I mean, it's unusual. You didn't get the nomination, but you had the support
Yes.
of the board. I saw the letters, so
Yes.
I'm not talking out of school.
Yes. Agreed. Starting from Mary Brining, who's the receiver of taxes, Joanne Dykeman, town clerk, Linda Puglisi especially, and really it was Linda's impetus that really kind of got it jump started. I mean, for all intents and purposes, back in early January, I really didn't have an idea that this was a possibility, that I was even thinking about running at that time. Got a phone call, and that's when really everything got kind of jump started, and that's when we had to sit down and everything, and that's when things moved very
Yeah,
quickly.
one of the reasons why we've done this show, you did it alone and then we've done it together, is because you didn't want to walk away from politics till you still had something to say.
Well, listen.
So that's why you had the show. You had something to say.
Being that the business is a family-based business, and I've catered it to being really a community-run business. You're always involved in your community, at least as far as we're concerned,
Right.
me and my family. I mean, we're not just. It's not like we just opened up our doors 5 years ago. We've
But
been in
I'm
business
saying,
for
Volpe's been on TV now almost 4 years.
Oh.
I said you did this because even though you weren't running for office,
Sure, because there was
you
still.
felt there were things you had to say and that you wanted people because you knew that people listen to you. 'Cause we're going to get to that in a minute because you mentioned that about community base. But people do come to you, and how many times? I mean, I don't even want to know how, because I know what they do with me in the cab, and they say, Domenic, what do you think? That's got to be a common refrain in your store.
All day long, we get multiple times. It's almost like when they come in, it's almost like the work that we do is really secondary to whatever the question is about what's going on in Peekskill, in the Cortland community
Cortland,
area,
right.
in Cortland community area. There's a lot of things going on, and sometimes it's just information. That's all they're
Right.
looking for.
But they
I refer
value
them,
your opinion on it.
and I'll refer them to the supervisor. I'll refer them to common council
Right,
members.
they want to know where to get answers
Yeah,
too. Who how to help. But
so-
it's funny. You have a business in Peekskill. You have a business in Cortland.
right.
You found out there is a big interaction between these two towns.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's one of the things I think you bring to the ticket, is that unlike the others, you actually have a presence in the neighboring community. And there is an interaction. Because I've seen the group meetings with the watershed and all this, that you would bring that bond between the two towns, that even though I know it exists, but it would be a closer bond because you have a closer relationship with the Peekskill community.
Well,
then I would say,
if you want to look at it geographically, I think that's the point that the supervisor was making, because of the 6 candidates that were originally brought in front of the committee, I was the only one that was from the north end of town. The other ones are all more Croton-based or central to the
tri. What do you call that?
One is out of the Tri-Village, which is Montrose,
Right.
Buchanan, Verplank.
Which watches this show?
Yeah, and so you have that, and you look at the town of Cortland, and it is somewhat segmented in the sense
I
that
always tell
geographically.
people Cortland surrounds Peekskill like
Correct.
a peanut shell,
Yeah.
with the Peekskill being in the middle, because you have a lower Cortland and
Right.
you have an upper Cortland.
And then the Hudson
But
is
you
the
even
barrier.
had a presence in lower Cortland for a long time too.
Well, we had 2 businesses that were located actually going back in the mid '80s to early '90s. Which was at the Amberlands complex, right in Croton, and also.
Then you had another one in Montrose, because I remember
Well,
going
the
with
one
you
in
to that store tour.
the one in Montrose, we had that open. That we were in Montrose area for close to 13 years.
So you were familiar with the issues of both parts of Cortland.
Oh, all parts of Cortland.
Right.
Yes, including the village, because we opened up a store at the ShopRite Shopping Center.
Right.
Also mid '80s, and we had that store there for about 7 years. So we kind of encompassed the whole town from top end to bottom.
But you bring a good marriage to Peekskill too.
Yes.
For the joint issues.
Well,
because you have a good relationship
me-
with the Peekskill Town Board.
Well, let me give you an example, and a good relationship with all the boards.
Right.
And really, when you look at it, like for example, you can see now how there's been more interaction between and don't forget, you have town of Cortland, which has the town of Cortland, but you also have the 2 villages of Buchanan and of Croton itself. So there's got to be a
look at
little
that like
bit more.
Yorktown with all its hamlets make up a town of
A
York.
hamlet is an area that's a compartmentalized part of the town. In this case, the village of Buchanan has its own highway department, has its own
government. They have their own
They have their
elections.
own government-owned elections, as well as the village of Croton. Unlike a hamlet, which is
Right.
a region, a part of it, but they really don't have their own, self interest in the sense that they elect their own village people. And that's why it's important to have someone that understands it's not just town of Cortland, it's town of Cortland, village of Buchanan, the Tri-Village, and village of Croton.
And a
Because
shared watershed, and a shared Con Edison, because the Henry Hudson School District goes into Peekskill too.
Right.
So it's a shared Con Edison. And I want to get this out of the way right now, because you have a lot of busybodies in surrounding New York City, and the governor and Somers that all say we want to shut down Indian Point. Yet I don't see this in the town of Cortland, and I certainly don't see this in you. You do not want to shut down Indian Point.
First of all, as long as we continue to keep, look, the three pieces are safe, vital, and secure.
Right.
As long as we keep that place secure, as far as for any terrorist activities or anything like that, it's good. Safe in the sense that it's being run properly. Can we have more outreach from Con Edison and Entergy? Yes, we could. But the fact is that they've had a long-standing track record. They seem to be running the operation in the utmost capacity, 100% capacity.
In a way, I think they've been a good neighbor, because they pour a lot of money into volunteer organization, not just the school, but you're compelled to do, what is that, the pilot program they call it? What is that called?
No, the pilot program is how they're
Right,
taxed.
that's the tax where they're compelled to pay that.
Yes.
But they volunteer a lot of resources resources
Well,
to a lot of groups.
Right.
And they're trying to be a good neighbor. Is this correct?
Throughout the whole area, throughout the northern Westchester
Right,
area.
but we're going to speak Cortland specific right now.
There are so many times where they've come forward with monies, and whether they sponsor the whole event or take partial, sponsorships.
I mean, I don't want to take away from what they do with the Paramount.
Right.
But I'm saying that in court, they've been trying to be a good neighbor in Cortland.
I think they've upped their ante. They understood that they had to be a better.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
I mean, because when they came in at the beginning, I think they were, if you want to call it stingy, they may have been stingy.
Right.
But I think since then they understood that their outreach was very important. And like, for example, I'm one of the members of the shelter here,
Right.
which is the homeless shelter that represents the whole region. And now all of a sudden they've opened up their
That's-
coffers. And their support, you may think, well, it's only a small amount. Hey, it's a small amount. It's an amount. And believe it or not, it's not small, it's big. And every little bit, every one of these volunteer organizations that they help out with, it's it's an immense portion of their budgets.
I want to get to the part where you said about a community-based business. You are on the board of the homeless shelter.
Correct.
Correct? You remember was it Knights of Columbus or Christopher Columbus?
Christopher Columbus.
You remember Christopher, you usually arrange their golf outing.
I ran it for almost 7 years.
That's what I mean, and it's always been successful.
Raised over, I can't tell you, close to probably $75,000, $80,000 in the years that I was involved.
You are also
I also do the American Legion Post 274.
Right. And you also were a member of the bid for a long time, and on the board of the Peaksville bid for a long time.
I was a 10-year member there. We ran all those.
But you were on the board for a number of years.
Well, I was president for almost 1 or 2 years, I believe.
So I'm saying, so you've been, in fact, in recognition.
But in Cortland, I used to run their Earth Day. I did that for 2 years.
Right.
I was part of their economic committee also for another 2 years.
And also with the soccer league.
Well, the soccer, I did their program for, I believe, at different points, if you add it up, it's probably about 10 years in total.
That's right, because you always had, you were played, your kids played.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah, just about, the boys especially, and even...
But you were a coach for a long time, weren't you?
Well, I've coached throughout from Yorktown.
Because I remember one of the Peaksville cops told me how you coached him as a kid.
That's right.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
He told me that you were his coach when he was a kid.
Yes.
And he was in the soccer league. So it's been a long time, obviously, if he's old enough to be a cop.
Yeah, it's been quite a few years. I did this coming out of college as soon as I started the business. As far as joining the business, immediately you went to a passion, a love, and so you helped out whatever.
And
you
of course,
could.
nobody could talk to you during World Cup soccer when it's on TV.
No.
Right?
That's for those 3 weeks you shut
your
down.
father and everything. It's the whole family.
It's watching the games at 2:00 in the morning and making the phone calls.
I've been to your store recently, and I noticed that there are a couple of awards you've received. Number one, this beautiful black clock.
Yes.
The beautiful black clock. That was for what?
Okay, that's for the support and for running the golf outing for the past 8 years for the American Legion on Post 274.
Clock run on time?
The clock runs on time.
Okay.
So
they gave you a good one when that works.
They gave me one when it works. I was very humbled by that. They were very appreciative of the effort. They were in some dire strait when I first joined that organization as far as their to help out with their fundraising efforts. You can see inside now how things have changed. They've renovated the upstairs 100%, downstairs they've even renovated. And thanks to a lot of the monies that I was able to
Now,
raise
you
for them.
also were just in the news. And this is when it pisses me off that people make politics out of something that's not political.
Right.
Because you were recognized
Right.
by veterans. What is it?
No. It's the Chapter 21.
Right.
It's the Purple Heart Society from.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the two people that presented you were not even from Peekskill.
No, they
not
weren't.
even from Cortland.
No,
one was from Yorktown, one was from Wappingers.
Correct.
Because this is a big chapter.
Right.
This was not.
It's a state chapter.
Right, and this was no way political.
Right.
Yeah, people may. What did you receive the award for? Because I want people to know that when you see these comments, that's a problem with online. You have these anonymous, and they may get. But this was actually for services rendered in a non-political way. Correct?
Correct. Well, the two people. Well, the person that gave me the award was from Yorktown.
Right.
He's
that was
the chairman of the
Steve
committee.
Gross.
Neil
Gross.
Neil
Yes,
Gross
a
is
friend
his
of
name.
my family's for 100 years.
Right, and And to be quite honest, I didn't even know who he was the night of because it was the first time we'd ever met, actually. The fellow who is the Veterans Council from the town of Cortland, chairman, his name is Willie Nazario. He lives in Croton. Was just recently, he's going to run for a higher office. He was the local chapter chairman. And he said, according to his words, he told me, he says, before he left, which was just about 2-3 weeks ago, he said, there's one person that I'd like to honor, and it's Domenic Volpe for all the effort that he's done in the past 4 years in order to support the veterans at the Montrose Hospital.
We're going to go into that in a minute, by the way, that support.
Okay.
But I wanted to say, because I wanted people to understand how this was so not in the loop of politics. I remember coming in the store day before you were to receive the award,
right?
And you said you had found out you were receiving it from a reporter that called you, correct?
Correct. Yes, he had,
from another an online newspaper, legitimate reporter,
right,
asked you about this, and your reaction was?
Well, what happened is I was summoned by the mayor and council to show up that Monday night for just to be there at 7:30.
But they didn't tell you to that Monday, right?
They didn't tell me anything other than to show up at 7:30. In my mind, I thought they were going to put me on another board, like a parking committee or something like that, because it wouldn't be the first time that's happened.
Right.
And then I show up, and that's when the reporter calls me, and he's talking about something else, and he says, "By the way, congratulations." And I said, "Congratulations about what?" And he says, "Well, you're going to be receiving the award tonight from the," and then all of a sudden he realizes he maybe it's something he shouldn't have told me. And that's when I'm like, uh-oh, something else is going on.
I mean, that's why this was so removed from politics.
Correct.
There's no political motive in this.
Yes.
And this was strictly, and now when we go, and it was your service for the VA hospital.
Well, one of the people brought it up to me. They said, well, why weren't you given this in the town of Cortland? Well, the problem is that the award was given, and the way it reads, is it's Domenic Volpe of Domenic Cleaners. Now,
which is loading in Peekskill.
So they had to give it to the locality there. Otherwise, I could have gone to Buchanan or Croton or town of Cortland.
Because this was not only Dominic's support, but the business support of the VA.
Correct.
Now, talk about that. This is a pet thing of Linda Puglisi's for a long time,
yes.
Supervisor Puglisi. You don't want them closing down that plant and moving everybody to Castle Point either,
Absolutely.
do you?
I've stood hand in hand with Supervisor Puglisi on this issue.
Before it was the popular thing to do.
Before it was the popular thing to do,
remember.
because what they want to do is they're trying to sell, or they're trying to, there was a move to sell the property located on the VA, the one closest to the waterfront,
right,
and to a contractor in order to develop, residential units. The problem with that is that what it does is it creates that inn where you could see eventually they wanted to shut down the VA Montrose Hospital,
right,
as well as all the other support systems that are there for veterans. And here's what makes no sense. There are over 1 million veterans that are in New York State alone. Other than the one that's located in the Bronx and the one in Castle Point, we handle the whole Hudson Valley region.
That's something that never made sense.
It doesn't make sense. And here's the other side of it, too. We've had 4 or 5 wars in the past 10, 15 years. 2 are still ongoing to somewhat a degree.
This becomes
there are more and more returning veterans every day.
And we have a lot of people from this area in the armed forces.
Correct.
This is not like, it's only poor kids from the ghetto doing this.
There are so many issues at hand that are going to be needed. We look at
we
the
have
ones.
a Yorktown councilman's kids over there that are in the service.
Correct. And you have look. There's PTSD that's involved. There are no purely women's treatment center, because look at the amount of women now that are serving in our services.
Yes. And now they're allowed in combat.
They're exactly just recently that they're actually allowed in combat.
But what I wanted to point out is that I've always said, and this is something you've concurred even on the show, that when it comes to local politics, party affiliation doesn't matter. When you and Linda championed the VA not show, you stood up not only against the congressman who was Democrat,
right,
but the county executive who was a Democrat.
Right.
This was not a party thing. This was
not if I was looking for popularity in the sense that within the party, I was bucking them at every turn. So that was not the way to go. It's the heartfelt thing that these are our veterans. It's not only their lives that are on the line, but you've got their wives, their moms and dads, their brothers and sisters that are being affected by every time one of these individuals, one of our servicemen go in order to support our flag.
But now,
so how can we turn our back on them? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay, we're running out of time. I want to get this is what I want to get to. You bring to the table, and one of the reasons I know you're running, is because you're not looking to bring an ideology. You believe. What are you bringing to the table as your business that you see now the most pressing needs that you can help the town board on?
Well, I think right now what we're looking for is, one of the comments I heard at the committee meeting was that they wanted to be more independent thinkers. And I
That's you.
And well, no, in this sense, in other words, that they were basically saying something against the current town board. I mean, give the supervisor Puglisi and the current town board members credit. They've been able to deliver a 22 years of a 0% budget with continuing to give the services that are expected by taxpayers. If you wanted to be an independent thing, so what is their mantra, that they want to raise taxes? I don't understand what the heck they were trying to say.
Surrounding towns use Linda as the comparison on budgets of how our budgets compare to Cortland.
Right.
I mean, they use her as a model, but also again, there is an independence in you and in the president, because when you stood up for Con Ed, you also stood up against the Democrat county executive that want to shut it down and the Democrat governor that wants to. You're doing what's best for the town. This is what I'm saying.
Listen, if you want to change it to say creative thinker of how do you think out of the box in order to continue to deliver these budgets that are A, on time, and B, 0% tax increase, and yet still deliver the services necessary to run the town, that's where you have to think outside the box. And that's where maybe that's where I can deliver it.
Well, I think you would, because in your business you have had to keep adjusting to the recession.
You
always have to.
We continually adapt. Some people say you do it on a yearly basis. We do it on a monthly basis. That's how quickly in business you have to react.
Especially in this economy.
In this economy, this is probably one of the toughest economies I've ever seen.
Oh, probably.
This is my third. This is my third recession I've lived through. This has got to be the worst. This is by far the worst. And you've got college kids right now that are finishing up 4-year careers, graduating, can't find jobs, are loaded with debt like you can to the tune of $75,000 to $150,000 on average. I mean, we need people out there that understand what's going on at the local level.
In this primary, that people have to know, even though you live in Cortland Manor, and you understand that you still understand the issues facing, like the town of Croton.
Yes. The village of Croton.
Village of Croton.
Right.
See, I'm from Yorktown, so I'm not.
Right. Or the village of Buchanan or the Tri-Village area. You have to be responsible. You have to understand what's going on. My input into this community on many levels allows me to understand, because you hear what goes on in those areas.
I want to close this show quickly.
Yes.
You're going to be knocking on doors soon, looking for signatures.
Correct.
What are the rules quickly? How many petitions can a person sign that are valid? In other words, you have 2 council positions.
Yes.
So they can only sign 2 valid council petitions.
Well, it goes. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. But it's as long as you sign a designated petition. Once you sign it, if you sign another one, that becomes invalid. If that's what you're talking about.
Right. I'm just saying. So he can't say this. I'm saying it before we close. Save your signature till he knocks on your door.
Just one other quick thing though. We have on the local level. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I wanted to get that petition thing on.
Yeah,
I told you we're running up into petition.
Yes.
And
Gotcha.
Emilio's going to be waiting for your knock.
Okay.
O'Connor with his mother.
I got the name.
By the way, with Emilio, it's his